This is Syd and this is Mad, and welcome to the Syd and Mad channel. So we are here at the Mont Helena house. It is home to Helen from the Chapel of the Cross video that we did. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. This house is built on an Indian ceremonial mound, and it is 10,000 square feet of pure rustic house. We're about to go explore that, so stay tuned. Let's go.
These two portraits, this is Helen and George Harris. Helen's parents came to Mississippi from North Carolina, and they settled in Madison. She came from a very, very wealthy family, very wealthy family. And her father and his brother came here to Mississippi after they had settled in Jackson. In 1855, and this was 4 days before Christmas, Henry's father, Colonel Vic, sends him to Madison to take some important papers over there for him. Well, when he's leaving Madison to come back to Nidiyuma, he hits a rut in the road and the wheel on his carriage breaks. And he remembered seeing, when he was going through, a very large mansion that wasn't too far away. So he walked to that mansion. That was Helen's sister's house. Well, Helen and her mom just happened to be visiting her sister Frances because they were talking about Christmas arrangements and what they were going to do for Christmas and everything. And so when Henry knocks on the door, Helen answers the door. And now Helen is 16 years old at this time. I think Henry was 2 or 3 years older than she is. So it's like love at first sight. He is just infatuated with her and she's infatuated with him. Well, he stays while they get his carriage fixed. He has a longtime servant. His name is Jake. And Jake travels and stays with Henry all the time. So, of course, Jake was with him on this trip, too. Henry and Helen got to visit for quite a length of time. And when Henry gets ready to leave to come back, when the carriage is fixed, he asks if he can call on her. And he does. And we have a budding love relationship that gets started between the two of them. Well, when Helen was 18 years old, they'd been courting for 2 years, Henry comes to Annandale to visit, and he presents her with a 5-carat diamond engagement ring. Well, everybody's all excited and happy, but her mother says that she cannot get married until her 20th birthday. So they have to wait basically another 2 years, but that's okay. They have their courting and everything, and their parties that they attend, and all of these fun things during their engagement. Right before the wedding, Henry is having his bachelor's party, so to speak, and all of his male friends are there, and so it's towards the end of the night. There's a storm that's coming up, and Henry's longtime friend, James Stiff, is at the party, and he and Henry have been friends and buddies since they were very, very little. Henry sends Jake to go get James's horse for him because they all want to get home before this storm comes in. Well, Jake goes and gets the horse, and he's trying to get the saddle tightened up and everything, and James comes flying out of the house and jumps up on the horse, and Jake has not had time to tighten the girth on the saddle. So needless to say, James falls off, and he gets up. He's really, really angry. And so he tells Henry to whip Jake. And Henry said no, he would not do it because he knew Jake would not have done that in intentionally. So James really gets very, very angry with Henry and tightens up the saddle, gets on his horse, and leaves in a huff. After that, several days before the wedding, Henry is going to go to New Orleans. They had hired the caterer and the musicians out of New Orleans. So Henry decides he will go down there and make sure that, all the preparations and everything's done. So he and a couple of his buddies go to New Orleans, and they decide one night to go out to this billiard hall. So who, lo and behold, walks in the door but James Stiff? Well, Henry doesn't realize that James is still very angry with him over the situation with the horse and the saddle. And so he and Henry have words, and James challenges Henry to a duel. Now, duels were big things back in those days, and that was man's honor, was that he would be in a duel. Well, Helen knew this, and she knew that Henry was infamous for his dueling, and he was needless to say, he was very good. In a lot of their conversations, Helen made Henry promise her that if he got involved in a duel again, that he would not shoot his opponent.
Can you make it spike again?
And he promised her that he would not. Well, back to New Orleans, the next morning, James and Henry meet before dawn to duel. And they meet actually at the Bay of Mobile, because in New Orleans, dueling was actually outlawed. So they meet at the Bay of Mobile, and they've got their Kentucky long rifles, and they stand back to back, and they pace off their 40 paces, and they turn and they fire. Well, Henry kept his promise. He fired up into the air. But Jake shot Henry right between the eyes and killed him. So Henry's friends put him on the boat, and they bring the body back to Niddy. And Colonel Vick sends Jake to Madison to tell Helen that Henry has been killed in the duel. Well, she insists that Henry be brought to Madison because she wants him buried there at the Chapel of the Cross in the graveyard. Well, they don't get there with the body until almost midnight. And this is the day before they're to be married. So they have the funeral, and it's at midnight. And she attends the funeral in her wedding gown and a black veil. And during the funeral, of course, the strike of midnight, then this is the day that they were to be married, that she is burying her love. Helen was just devastated over this, just completely, totally devastated. Helen's parents built the Chapel of the Cross, and it just so happens George is an Episcopalian minister, and he has been sent to the Chapel of the Cross as an interim priest. He meets Helen. Well, he falls in love with Helen. And Helen still is mourning for Henry, but George persists, and finally she agrees to marry him. And they were married for 49 years. This home was to be their retirement home. In 1911, George passed away, and they were living in this house. And in 1917, Helen passed away, and they both passed away in their bedrooms upstairs. And when Helen passed away, the people that were here heard her say, "He's coming for me." And the he that she was referring to was not George, it was Henry. he was her one love, but George understood all of that when he asked her to marry him. And he told her that, he knew he would always be second choice, but he loved her and he wanted to marry him. And they had a wonderful life together, and they built this fabulous house.
Okay, right now we are so this is actually Helen and George's bedroom. They both died in here. A fun fact is Helen's last words were that he was coming for me, and it actually wasn't George who was coming, it was Henry. So that's pretty cool. So we're going to try to get some EVPs or any kind of sign that something's here.
So we're going to use the spirit box to connect with Helen, hopefully.
Power on. Now in SB7 mode.
Nothing up. I don't like it. Is there anybody here? Hello? Whoa! If anybody is here, can you please say hello? Can you talk to us through the spirit box? Make this spike if you can talk to us through the spirit box. Turn this off. I heard something over there. Can you hear that? What was it? I don't know, I can't hear it. We're going to go in there really fast. Okay. We're going to go in here. Something happened. Is it spiking? It's right here. Yeah, right in this vicinity. Yeah. Maybe it's me. There has to be some sort of like electromagnetic field right here. So we just left the Mount Helen house. Mont Helen? Or Mount? Mont Helen. We didn't stay for very long. Well, we stayed for 2 hours,
But our tour guide had to stay while we were there, so we really didn't want to waste her time. So,
yeah, and she was just sitting downstairs, and we just felt really bad, so we kind of wrapped up. We didn't really do as much ghost investigation as we wanted to.
we tipped her very generously.
We
though.
did. But what we were more interested in was the history. We had no idea that it was about Henry and Helen before we showed up.
I probably look so stupid in this because I'm trying to concentrate on driving. But yeah, I had no idea. Like, I had done a lot of reading about the home itself, but I never knew that it was connected with the Chapel of the Cross. So
Yeah.
that was a mind blown for all of us.
Yeah, it was, definitely. So thanks for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed learning more history about Henry and Helen.
We know it's very short, but we felt like it was kind of important to know more of the backstory. And just in case we got any of the story wrong in the first video. But if you haven't seen it, go check it out.
Give us a like.
And don't forget to hit that bell in the top right corner so you get notifications every time we post. Thanks!
But with all that being said, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!